The following video is not made for kids. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello to my subscribers. This is the TF Angie coming to you with what will hopefully be a successful review. And tonight we're going to be taking a look at a Transformers action figure that a lot of fans and collectors have been divided over because the action figure, it's one that from what I've seen from the reviews of people who got this figure early when it was first released, which was, I think, December of last year in 2025 is when people started to get a hold of copies of it. But this figure is one where Transformers fans and collectors either completely love it or completely hate it with not too much middle ground. Part of it has to do with the fact that this action figure, it's lacking some features that fans and collectors were hoping it would have, and the ones it does have aren't really as great as collectors had hoped that they would have been. But this is also the second action figure of this character that's been released, and as the title of the video has already revealed, it is the Transformers Studio Series TF1 Voyager Class Alpha Trion action figure. So yeah, this is the Studio Series version of Alpha Trion from the Transformers TF1 film that came out in 2024. So you got the TF1 logo for the Studio Series line, you got Alpha Trion, you got Takara Tomi's logo on the top of the box. For the box art, you've got Alpha Trion both in his robot mode and his beast mode of a horned lion. The horned lion alt mode was introduced to Alpha Trion when his Titans Return Voyager class action figure was released back in 2016. I personally haven't wholeheartedly embraced the idea of Alpha Trion having a lion beast mode for his alt mode. The thing with Alpha Trion is that he was a character created for the Transformers Generation 1 cartoon show by Sunbow Productions back in 1985, is when he was introduced during the cartoon second season. And Alpha Trion never transformed, he always stayed in robot mode, and he just would walk around Cybertron to get to where he had to go. And because he never actually had an alt mode in the Generation 1 cartoon series, and because he was a character originally created for the cartoon show, Alpha Trion did not get an action figure until, I want to say, BotCon gave him an action figure during the 2000s, almost 20 years after he was introduced to the Transformers franchise. And because he never transformed into an alt mode, the Alpha Trion's quote-unquote official alt mode, he doesn't actually have an official alt mode, it's just been disambiguous and left open to interpretation as to what alt mode he might have. Because Alpha Trion in the Transformers comic books, he was portrayed in the Generation 1 cartoon, Alpha Trion had a cape that had a line going down it looking like a pair of wings on his back, and in future comic books after the G1 comic books run ended Alpha Trion, instead of just having a cape, he had a pair of two wings hanging off of his back. And so because of that, a lot of fans and collectors assumed that those were wings for a jet alt mode, and so universally that's been the alt mode that Alpha Trion has possessed the most often, is a Cybertronian jet. I personally enjoy the Cybertronian jet version of Alpha Trion than the horned lion version. And by horned lion, I mean they gave him a unicorn horn on the top of his forehead. So in recent years, I've noticed some people have been saying, based on historic evidence, the myth of the unicorn started when the first Europeans went to Africa and saw rhinos for the first time. The best way that they described rhinos when they returned to Europe was that they were steeds with horns, and the only animal known as a steed in Europe was the horse. And so that's how the myth of the unicorn started, was because people thought that rhinos were horned horses, and in more recent years science has shown that rhinos are closely related to horses and vice versa. So technically, yeah, unicorns just exist, their actual name is just rhinos. So that's what Hasbro started to go here. They gave Alpha Trion a lion with a rhino's horn. Now, one could argue that Alpha Trion technically could be a lion-rhino hybrid based on the shape of his alt mode, and it's particularly here with the Studio Series figure, but technically it's also with the first figure of him that was given. Basically, if you look closely at the Transformers TF1 movie, Alpha Trion's his robot mode feet, one could argue, kind of sort of look like toes from a rhino's foot. So yeah, I kind of find it kind of freaky that one could argue that the TF1 version of Alpha Trion, he's a mashup of a a rhino and a lion, so he's basically a fuser from the Beast Wars series. But yeah, he's basically supposed to be just a lion with a rhino's horn or a unicorn's horn on his forehead. And you got the Autobot logo on this side of the box, and again you got Alpha Trion close above his face and his beast mode. It's now shown both on the front and back of the boxes how many steps an individual Transformers action figure takes to get from one mode to the other. And Alpha Trion transforms back and forth between his robot mode and his beast mode in 26 steps. As on this side of the box, you've got the same image of Alpha Trion's face, where one of his horns is missing. It's been chipped off following the portrayal of Sentinel Prime. I am who murdered 12 of the 13 original Primes. Alpha Trion was the only survivor. He fell into a coma where he was trapped in a state of hibernation until Orion Pax, D16, Alita 1, and B127, aka Bumblebee, all found Alpha Trion in the cave and learned the truth that Sentinel Prime not only murdered the 13 original Primes, but he betrayed the entirety of planet Cybertron by secretly allying with the Quintessons. And had Alpha Trion not survived, I have to show the truth to Orion Pax and his friends, and Sentinel Prime's betrayal, the secret might not have ever been known. Oh, and so, in that regard, Alpha Trion is the most important essential character in the Transformers TF1 film, since he reveals the truth of Sentinel Prime's treachery to the rest of planet Cybertron on through Orion Pax, D16, Alita 1, and B127. So, in that regard, you would think that Hasbro would make his Studio Series Voyager-class-sized action figure one of the crown jewels of the TF1 subline of Studio Series, and unfortunately from reviews I have seen, the exact opposite is the case. Pretty much what the Studio Series version of Alpha Trion has going for him to make him a great Transformers action figure is screen accuracy, and that's pretty much it. He's lacking ankle rocker joints at the bottom of his robot mode legs, and his his lion beast mode, the way he transforms, especially his back legs, they look wonky with how you have to transform him, and the parts of him, such as his rhino's horn, that's what I'm going to call it throughout the rest of the video, and his beast mode, lion's tail, which is he wields as a weapon in robot mode. In the TF1 film, it's shown here on the box art on the front of the box. Alpha Trion's rhino's horn and his lion's tail are made out of electricity instead of being made out of metal, and because of that, the designers at Hasbro and Tomy decided to make those parts of his Studio Series figure clear to show that, oh, it's electricity, it's energon, on whatever, it's not metal, so there's no reason for it to be solid. And they kind of went in the opposite direction of what they did with Alpha Trion's first action figure action figure based on his TF1 appearance. This is the a TF1 mainline deluxe class version of Alpha Trion that was released back in 2024 at the same time that the film was still showing in movie theaters. And yeah, the Studio Series figure doesn't have the ankle rocker joint that his mainline deluxe figure possesses. And in terms of longevity, the deluxe figure, the sword and the rhino horn, they both detach and become weapons that Alpha Trion can use. And to show that it's made out of electricity, the designers at Hasbro and Tomy made the weapon in the shape of a lightning bolt. But they're both actually made out of the gray plastic used here for the hilts that Alpha Trion holds onto. It's the same light gray plastic used on Alpha Trion's torso and his beast mode lion's head. And in robot mode, for the TF1 mainline Alpha Trion figure, I can't remember if I covered these things when I reviewed this figure last year in 2025, but the lion's head kibble gives the illusion of the wings that Alpha Trion had in the Transformers comic books, mimicking his cape. In the TF1 film, Alpha Trion does have the cape. It's made out, I believe it was made out of, it was like a paper thin in a style of metal, and it was basically designed to mimic a cape being made out of fabric. The Studio Series Voyager class version of TF1 Alpha Trion. It does not have any type of cape at all. So a lot of Transformers fans and collectors have said, as far as which version is the better version of Alpha Trion, a lot of fans and collectors from other reviews I've seen have been saying that the a TF1 mainline deluxe class Alpha Trion figure is the better of the two figures. And one thing that another thing that the Studio Series Voyager class figure has going against it is the new price hike from that Hasbro started this year in the current year of this video's recording in 2026. Voyager class Transformers now have a retail price tag of, I have to facepalm myself, $43. And when I started collecting Transformers back in the early 2000s, specifically 2003, that amount of money got you a size class of Transformer that technically doesn't exist anymore. Ultra class size. They were in between the size of Voyager and Leader class Transformers. A Leader class Transformer retailed for about $30, I believe, if I remember correctly. Or no, that was Ultra class. So yeah, Leader class Transformers retailed for $40 for the longest time back in the 2000s, and so the fact that 20 years later Voyager class figures now go for the price that Leader class Transformers used to go for now. Now it's really ridiculous, and a lot of fans and collectors have been saying that with the new price hikes for 2026, at this rate they aren't going to be able to buy and collect a lot of all the Transformers action figures that they want to get. In the past, despite some of Hasbro's price hikes, I was able to go completist and get every single Transformers action figure I wanted to buy, but most recently, with the most recent wave of both Studio Series and of course Age of the Primes, I wasn't quite able to get every single Transformers action figure I wanted to get. I originally was going to pass on the Studio Series Voyager class Alpha Trion action figure completely. What made me decide to change my mind and get him is because of the fact that Alpha Trion is one of my favorite Transformers characters, and I just wanted to see if maybe perhaps the Studio Series Voyager class figure might have compete with the mainline deluxe figure in being a decent version of Alpha Trion from the TF1 film. So here on the back of the box you've got photos of his robot mode, and you've got his beast mode of the line mode, 26 steps. You got a screenshot of him from the TF1 film when Orion Pax and the others first find him in the cavern, and his one-sentence bio here on the top of the box reads, Alpha Trion, on the wisest and most noble of the primes, is awoken by Orion Pax. So yeah, that's his introduction in the Transformers TF1 film, is when they found him in a state of comatosis in the cave where Sentinel Prime murdered the other 13 primes. And one thing to note is that when you transform Alpha Trion from beast mode to robot mode, the rhino horn on his head ends up becoming the top spike on the tail weapon, which becomes a volt of electricity that he utilizes. I don't know if he uses it like a sword or like a club. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've watched the TF1 film. But these other spikes pictured here, sticking out of the sides of the lion's tail here, they detach and they form the spikes here at the top of the shoulder and hips for Alpha Trion's Rhino mode. So yeah, he does have a lot of accessory pieces. He has a total of 6, I believe, the tail, and then the 5 spikes that attach to his hips, knee, shoulders, and his beast mode head, which combine to form into a spiked energy weapon that he wields in robot mode. And that's pretty much it to say about Alpha Trion while he's still inside the box. So let's get him out of the box and see what he looks like in his robot mode. Alright, and so here is the Studio Series TF1 Voyager class Alpha Trion action figure transformed into his robot mode out of the box. And as far as I can tell, I believe I have he is not mistransformed. Armed, just adjusting his heel spurs. But yeah, here he is, fresh out of the box, and yeah, like I said at the start of the review, pretty much what this version of Alpha Trion has going for him is screen accuracy, such as one of his horns having the top of it chipped off And that reminds me a lot of the Transformers animated version of Ratchet, of how one of his horns fell off. As far as missing horns go, arguably the most famous character to have a missing horn from the top of their head is the version of Cyclonus from IDW's comic books. A lot of fans and collectors to this day have been wondering if and when there would ever be an IDW version of Cyclonus with one of his horns missing, but Hasbro never made an action figure of IDW Cyclonus. But yeah, at least we now have this version of Alpha Trion to see what that would be like. Haha. But anyways, one thing to note about the Studio Series version of Alpha Trion, his head is attached to his torso at a 45-degree angle to mimic the hunchback appearance that he has in the film. So if you wanted to technically get technical, technically Alpha Trion is like this, where he's half bent over and he's looking up like this. I have him, even though he's sitting on my hand, and he has that this is what he looks like hunched over, and I think that's the look they were trying to go for with Alpha Trion, is that after the battle with Sentinel Prime, Alpha Trion was reduced to not being able to walk standing erect like he did before the battle. And I think what they were trying to go for is that Alpha Trion, while he might have been the eldest of the 13 Primes, before the fight, before Sentinel Prime's betrayal, he definitely did not have the strength he did after the battle was over. And here's his weapon. It's formed by the lion's tail, and then the 5 spikes from the one that attaches to the lion head is the one on top, and then you got the spikes for the lion mode shoulders and hips. There's one on each side of the sword, or they're at different elevated spots. So the idea is that he has 5 spikes at the end of his electric weapon. I was kind of hoping, even though it's clear plastic, I was hoping it would be the same solid plastic as the rest of Alpha Trion, but if you look right here, hopefully I can show it off. If you look right here, that's me wobbling it with very little effort. So yeah, unfortunately this is the same type of rubbery plastic used on the Blast Effect X that were released with the Battle Masters during the War for Cybertron Siege and Earthrise lines. So in more recent years it's been revealed the hard way that rubbery plastic, if it's left attached to solid plastic for a long time, the rubbery plastic will cause the solid plastic to disintegrate and rip apart. So unfortunately there is a fear that Alpha Trion, if you leave his lion's mode tail plugged into the back of him for too long a time, it could dissolve the figure. So there is possibility potentially of maybe having to buy a duplicate copy of the TF1 mainline deluxe Alpha Trion action figure to have a solid tailed ale for this version of Alpha Trion. But regardless, it's for articulation, because the head's at a 45-degree angle, technically it has the ability to spin 360 degrees, but if you spin Alpha Trion's head around, yeah, that's the angle it's going to be sitting at, so the neck joint is rendered useless. The arms are attached to the shoulder via a swivel joint, but there's 3mm pegs right here, right underneath the shoulder, which I believe are there for transformation into the lion mode. So they do get in the way, and they render the arm articulation. The shoulder joint is rendered somewhat well, it basically has that obstruction stopping it from being fully utilized. You have a bicep swivel, hinged elbow, no wrist articulation due to how the hands rotate around and flip into the lower arm to transform Alpha Trion's hands into the lion's paws. He does have a waist swivel, but due to it's kind of hard for me to show it off, but due to see if I can show it right here. The waist, unfortunately, can't entirely spin 360 degrees due to these hinge joints in there for transformation into his beast mode, so that's disappointing to see that. Legs are attached at the hip on a universal joint, so they can go forward this far, but they can only go back this far due to the armor that Alpha Trion has on the back of him. Technically, there isn't a thigh swivel, but there's a swivel joint right above the knee joint, and there's also a hinge. But but as far as articulated joints for the Studio Series version of Alpha Trion, the make it or break it deal with collectors is for the feet articulation. The toes can technically move up, but that's primarily due to transformation, and the heel spurs can move forward and backward for the back of the foot, but that's it. That's all the foot articulation Alpha Trion has going for him. Yeah, he has no ankle rockers whatsoever, so if you want to get Alpha Trion into a sprawl-legged pose on a... I'm just reaching over and grabbing a random box. So if you want to get Alpha Trion into a sprawl-legged pose, yeah, just like Transformers action figures that were being released by Hasbro back in the 2000s and the first half of the 2010s, his feet will just be resting on his toes, and his feet will actually be floating in the air. That was a common sight if you were collecting Transformers action figures back in the 2000s. Ankle rockers were a joint that didn't come out until, I want to say, sometime during the mid-2010s is when ankle rocker joints started to become more commonly used. So whether or not the designers did that on purpose to show that after the battle with Sentinel Prime, Alpha Trion was much stiffer and had limited movement due to the injuries that he suffered, I honestly don't know. But if they did that, but even if that was done for the sake of that, I kind of wish they wouldn't have done it and just gave him as many articulated joints as he could possibly use, just so fans and collectors could mimic Alpha Trion before the battle with Sentinel Prime, and that, I believe, is one of the reasons why this figure was released. For a size comparison, here is a Studio Series TF1 Voyager class Alpha Trion next to the mainline TF1 Deluxe class Alpha Trion action figure, and even though I'm holding them up in the air, this is the how the size of them compare to each other. And yeah, the Studio Series TF1 Alpha Trion action figure, he's not that much larger than the a mainline TF1 Deluxe class Alpha Trion action figure. Since this guy was released back in 2024, before the price ice hike of Transformers action figures, this guy originally retailed for, I want to say, $20 back in 2024, and the fact that this guy retails for $43, and they're almost the same size, yeah, that's kind of a letdown. I believe the head sculpts are they are almost the same size. They aren't exactly the same. They are different, but the head sculpts are similar enough that it's obviously the TF1 version of Alpha Trion. I don't know if you'd be able to do a head swap. I believe the ball joints on the back are attached to are shaped differently, so I don't know if you would be able to do a head swap between these two versions of TF1 Alpha Trion. But yeah, the deluxe figure has the ankle rocker joints, so you can get him into a sprawl-legged pose while keeping his feet on the ground. So that's one plus that this figure has over this one. And for me personally, I prefer opaque plastic versus clear plastic, and I prefer solid plastic versus rubbery plastic. So in terms of who has the better weapon, I'm going to give the mainline deluxe figure that at honor of having better weapons, having opaque solid plastic accessory pieces. And in terms of having the cape, many collectors pointed out when this figure came out that if you look at it from the front, the inside of the lion's head looks like Alpha Trion's cape, at least from the front. Even though it's kibble of the lion's head hanging off the back, at least it doubles as the cape. The TF1 version of Alpha Trion has no cape at all. Also, that's another thing where the mainline Deluxe version of Alpha Trion has the Studio Series version beat. Pretty much where the Studio Series figure shines is, as I said, screen accuracy. So here on the back of Alpha Trion, you've got what's left of his lion's mane, and it's covered in the same mossy dirt and dust that he was shown having in the TF1 film. So one could argue that the mainline deluxe version of Alpha Trion is what he looked like before Sentinel Prime's betrayal, and this is him after. And that's what this figure, that's what they were, I believe the designers were going for with this version of Alpha Trion. This is him after Sentinel Prime's betrayal, not before. So for those of you wanting to have a TF1 Alpha Trion undamaged and unbroken, and how he looked before Sentinel Prime betrayed the 13 Primes and Planet Cybertron, then the mainline deluxe figure of Alpha Trion is the pre-Sentinel Prime betrayal version of Alpha Trion, and this one is post Sentinel Prime's betrayal, the Studio Series Voyager class figure. And that's pretty much all there's to say about that. In terms of screen accuracy, the mainline deluxe figure technically has the cape made from the lion's head, while this one has the missing horn on Alpha Trion's head, and it's got the dirt and moss on his back. But due to the lack of ankle joints in robot mode, the deluxe figure has the Studio Series Voyager figure beat out in that regard. Alright, so without further delay, let's get these guys transformed into beast mode, and we will wrap up the review on the Studio Series TF1 Voyager class Alpha Trion figure. Alright, and so here is the Studio Series TF1 Voyager class Alpha Trion transformed into his lion mode, and for me, what I find the most jarring is how the robot mode legs transform into the back legs of the lion mode. It almost looks like he's jumping in the air, especially if you angle the paws downward. It looks like he's if you leave the toes in the same position they're in when Alpha Trion's in his robot mode like this, it almost looks like he's wanting to bounce up in the air and almost like be a bipedal lion in that regard. Alright, but yeah, it's not the best lion mode for me personally. I still prefer the lion mode of the mainline TF1 deluxe version of Alpha Trion. But yeah, there's the rhino horn on the top of his head, and then the 4 smaller spikes from his club being the spikes for the hips and shoulders for the lion mode, and then the main weapon becomes the lion tail. And again, this is rubbery plastic into solid plastic, so yeah, there's a fear over time that it could damage the figure. I hope a third party, I hope a third party company, DNA Design or anyone, designs an upgrade kit that switches out the clear rubbery plastic horns and tail that Alpha Trion comes with opaque plastic ones. One minor gripe that I have is that, as far as I'm aware, I have transformed Alpha Trion correctly, and so, unfortunately, his head can't, the lion head, you can only have it look forward that far, so unfortunately, you can't have him actually staring straight out ahead. One feature it has that the mainline deluxe figure does not is that you can actually open up Alpha Trion's mouth, and I do love the sculpting of his teeth in there. They look like lion's fangs, so he at least has an opening mouth. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Just like his robot mode, in lion mode, the designers were trying to go for this look where Alpha Trion has a hunched back to him. And with the moss being on one side of his shoulder than the other, Alpha Trion is not symmetrical. All 4 of his 2 back legs and his 2 front legs don't have the same design to it. So if you were to slice Alpha Trion in half the left half and right half of his half of him are different sculpted detailing. So, and that's one thing to be aware of, is that Alpha Trion is not a symmetrical transformer, both in his robot mode and his beast mode. And he's got fake robot mode horns here on the top of the lion head to make it look like his robot mode head transforms into the lion's head just like in the movie. To transform it, there's a mechanism, and the lion's head and the robot mode head are on this part that swivels around 180 degrees and hides inside the lion's mane. In both modes, the lion head hides inside the mane in robot mode and vice versa. One thing to note about Alpha Trion, I don't know if this is just my copy, but when you have the feet in robot mode, hopefully you can hear it. The feet clip into place and the toes lock in place when Alpha Trion's in his robot mode, so that's the position they're in for robot mode. And when you unclip them, they can rotate up that far ahead, but you can't unfortunately have the feet sit flat on the ground like that because they're too far elevated above the front paws. And so this is the best angle to get the toes lined up at, but if you can see right here on this foot, but there's no locking mechanism for the toes when they transform into the lion mode legs, so the toes will unfortunately want to sag and make it look like Alpha Trion's trying to squat without actually squatting. So just be mindful of the loose toes on the back paws for this version of Alpha Trion. And once again, for a size comparison, here he is next to the mainline TF1 Deluxe version of Alpha Trion. And again, as I said, what the Studio Series Voyager class figure has going for it compared to the mainline Deluxe figure is more screen accuracy, and it does have the gimmick of the opening jaw in lion mode, so Alpha Trion can look like he's roaring. The TF1, the mouth is permanently closed, but with the teeth showing, it looks like Alpha Trion snarling, but you can't get the mainline Deluxe version of him to roar. Or, if you wanted to, you could switch out the horns between both versions of Alpha Trion if you want. Technically, this one attaches to the figure via a pair of 3mm ports on it, but you could attach the horn to this version of Alpha Trion. You could, if you wanted to, you could attach Alpha Trion's the Studio Series Voyager class figure. You could attach two of the spikes to the hips of the lion mode for the mainline Deluxe version of Alpha Trion, and attach it to that. As far as the tail, as far as being able to swap tails between the two, the mainline Deluxe figure, it actually uses this rectangular peg right there to attach to Alpha Trion's his mainline Deluxe figure in lion mode. So, unfortunately, there's no way of attaching the Studio Series version of Alpha Trion. There's no actual way of attaching his tail to the back of the mainline Deluxe figure. I'm just holding onto it with my finger with friction, but yeah, it doesn't actually attach. You could, since there's a 5mm peg on the base of the tail for the mainline TF1 Alpha Trion action figure, you could attach the Deluxe figure's tail to the Studio Series Voyager class's lion mode if you want. So yeah, they can swap some parts, but they aren't. They weren't designed to be able to swap parts with each other. But if you want the Studio Series version of Alpha Trion to have a solid colored or a solid plastic tail, then you could take the tail from the mainline TF1 Deluxe Alpha Trion figure and attach it to the Studio Series figure. Now, for me personally, what originally put me off in not wanting to get Alpha Trion was how his robot mode legs transform into the back legs of the lion mode, and visually it's because of how far back they stick out. Like I said, it looks like Alpha Trion's trying to leap through the air instead of just standing in a regular pose, which the mainline Deluxe figure does better in lion mode. And I finally figured out the reason why the mainline Deluxe figure has better looking lion legs than the Studio Series figure, and that's because just like the mainline deluxe figure has the ankle rocker joints for robot mode, another joint it has that the Studio Series Voyager figure is lacking is that when you transform Alpha Trion's robot mode legs into the back legs for the lion mode, right here, do it on the leg that's closer to the camera, but right here, this transformation joint where this metal pin right here by my finger is, that joint that allows you to fold the robot mode knee, that joint allows you to flip the leg up. If that joint wasn't there, then the leg would end up sticking out like that. So for the Studio Series figure, instead of bending that joint here on the back and being able to allow it to instead of bending the leg down up here at the at this joint like the mainline deluxe figure does, they instead decided to just leave the legs spread out in the back, and they just had the toes fold up instead. And so that's why the lion mode for the mainline deluxe Alpha Trion figure has, in my opinion, better looking lion mode legs, because the joint is in that bottom knee joint there, instead of the joint that folds up in the legs being the actual toes. So that was a poor design choice, I personally believe. Even if you look at how Alpha Trion's legs are sculpted, it almost looks like they wanted to do a hinge joint right there on the leg where the heel spurs fold in and out of, but for whatever reason they decided not to do it, and instead they did it at the joint at the toes. But I think that was a poor design choice. I wish they would have done the joint, another hinge joint here with the heel spurs instead, because they did it for the mainline deluxe figure having the joint there instead of at the feet, and it makes the lion mode look a lot better having the back legs in this configuration on the deluxe figure versus the Studio Series figure. So for me personally, which version of TF1 Alpha Trion is the quote-unquote better version, the mainline deluxe or the Studio Series Voyager class action figure? In my opinion, I really hate saying it, but I still think the mainline deluxe version of Alpha Trion is the better Alpha Trion action figure overall. Like I said, the main thing the Voyager Studio Series figure has going for it is having much more screen accuracy compared to the mainline deluxe class figure. But screen accuracy can only get you so far if you don't have great joint articulation, and if you're a beast mode makes it look like you're undecided what pose you're in, if you're in a running pose or a standing pose. Yeah, as far as which version of Alpha Trion I personally prefer, or I think is the better version, it is still the mainline deluxe version. If they had done the joint at the heel spur instead of the paws for the back legs, and not made the legs stick so far out, and if they had used solid plastic for Alpha Trion's accessory pieces instead of clear plastic, then I think the Studio Series figure with the opening jaw and having the much more screen accurate lion's mane covered in dirt and moss, then that would have made the Studio Series Voyager figure the better figure compared to the mainline deluxe figure. But yeah, unfortunately it's not the greatest Alpha Trion figure in my opinion. But for those of you who want to have a slightly more screen accurate version of Alpha Trion than what the mainline deluxe figure looks like, then the Studio Series version of Alpha Trion is what it has going for it. So for the final proverbial question of the review, do I recommend getting the Studio Series TF1 Voyager class Alpha Trion action figure and adding it to your Transformers collection, even if you do not have the TF1 mainline Alpha Trion action figure? no. Unfortunately, I cannot recommend getting this version of Alpha Trion. And even if you already have the TF1 mainline deluxe version of Alpha Trion in your collection, do I recommend getting this version of Alpha Trion? Even if you already have this one in your collection, no, I still cannot recommend getting this version of Alpha Trion. I will recommend getting it if you're an avid fan of both the Transformers TF1 film, and if you're a fan of Alpha Trion as a Transformers character. That's the only reason I would recommend getting the Studio Series Voyager class version of Alpha Trion. But if you're not necessarily a fan of Alpha Trion, or if you're not necessarily a fan of the TF1 film, but you want to have an action figure of Alpha Trion from the TF1 film in your Transformers collection, then I recommend tracking down, and adding the mainline deluxe figure that was released back in 2024, and adding this figure to your Transformers collection before you decide to go after the Studio Series deluxe figure. I just dropped Alpha Trion on the floor, and his horn fell out. So yeah, just dropping him on the floor with little effort will cause his rhino horn to pop off of the lion mode head. And as I said, the toes are loose, so they will want to flip up, and it looks like Alpha Trion's in a half running, half squatting position in his lion mode. So yeah, that's the main gripe I have with this figure. I wish the joints to make the lion legs I wish it would have been here at the heel spur instead of at the actual toes, because his legs just stick out really far, and as I said, it looks like he's in a half running, half squatting position when he's in lion mode. The lion mode for the TF1 mainline figure is definitely the better lion mode compared to the Studio Series figure. So that is pretty much all I have to say. This has been the TFangy. This has been my review of the Transformers Studio Series TF1 Voyager class Alpha Trion action figure. And for me, this figure can be an easy pass. This might be the biggest letdown figure of the TF1 line. A lot of fans and collectors were hoping that the Studio Series Voyager class Alpha Trion figure, they were hoping that it would be a repeat of Sentinel Prime, where the mainline deluxe version of Sentinel Prime that was released in the mainline TF1 line of Transformers action figures. The deluxe mainline figure of Sentinel Prime, it's okay, but the Studio Series Voyager class version of Sentinel Prime is definitely the superior version. And with Alpha Trion, comparing the mainline deluxe with the Studio Series Voyager figure, it's the opposite of Sentinel Prime. The Voyager class figure, while it's more screen accurate, it feels like a downgrade compared to the mainline TF1 deluxe class version of him. So that's a little disappointing. That Alpha Trion, comparing his mainline deluxe TF1 figure with his Studio Series Voyager class figure, it's the opposite of Sentinel Prime. But that's just my opinion. Now, let me go down in the comment section what you guys think. Do you think that, despite my personal gripes with Alpha Trion, do you think that he's still a decent enough Transformers action figure worth getting? Please let me know down in the comment section. So until next time, you guys, this has been the TFangy, and please remember, there is no age limit to collecting. As long as you enjoy the hobby, then it's a lifelong hobby that brings lots of fun and entertainment. And until next time, you guys, please remember to stay safe, stay healthy, transform, and roll out. Goodbye, everyone.